G'day guys, it's Tim here. So for the video today, I'm going to be talking about study in Finland, what the education system is like, and my experience as an international student studying here in Finland. I've been studying my master's degree here at the University of Helsinki. I've been going for a year and a half now. I've learned a lot. There's been some good things and some bad things. That's also why the videos have been coming out a little bit slowly recently, so I'm sorry about that. But I'm getting back into it. But I thought today I'd share a bit of my experience and let you know whether or not you should consider study in Finland as well. So as you're probably already well aware of by now, Finland has some of the best education in the world. It's pretty consistently been ranked as one of the highest countries when it comes to standard of education, and that's for primary school through to high school, and the universities are pretty great as well. My experience at the University of Helsinki has been pretty great. On the world scale, Helsinki University is ranked pretty high, and yeah, in general, I think the Finnish universities have a good standard of education, as with a lot of the rest of Europe. One interesting thing that was of note here was that if you go study at university in Finland, you have to do a master's degree, essentially. Where I come from in Australia, it's very common to only do a bachelor degree, which is what I had. And when I came here, I sort of was expecting that it's going to be easy for me to get a job. I'm university educated, I'll stand out against the rest of the crowd. But that wasn't at all the case. Because I didn't have a master's degree when I came, I was essentially well behind other people in my field. So you can know that if anyone has studied at university in Finland, the education level is going to be really high. Another huge pro when it comes to studying in Finland is that it's free. So if you compare that to studying in the US, it's huge. Even in Australia, the fact that you can get a university education for free is just a massive, and you've saved tens of thousands of dollars over people that have had to pay for their education. It's not so bad for us in Australia as it is in the US. The Australian government helps people out with their loans so that they don't have to pay these crazy rates of interests that the people in the US do. But still, I have racked up a few tens of thousands of dollars of debt from studying in Australia at university, so it's good to know that I'm not adding to that with my master's degree here in Finland. On top of that too, depending on what sort of visa you get in Finland, you can actually get support from the government. So even now I get, it's not heaps, but it's a few €100 every month that I get in study allowance, which helps with the costs of things here and there. But of course, you sort of do need to try to find a part-time job as well. And so that's something to consider if you're coming to Finland. You need to still have a bit of money saved up for the high cost of living that's here, or you need to make sure you can get a part-time job once you get here. I've been lucky enough to get a job that's starting in a couple of weeks here in Finland, and I'm actually heading all the way up to Sodankylä, right up in the north of Finland. So I'm going to have plenty of interesting stories to share from up there. Make sure you're subscribed to hear about all that. One of the consequences though of university being free is that it's very competitive. Obviously they can't offer unlimited spaces, and so it's not that uncommon to hear of people having a hard time getting into the course that they want to at university. I've got a lot of friends that have taken years to study for the entrance exams into the university course that they want to, and still sometimes not even getting there after all of that. My experience though was a little bit different. So as an international student, it was a little bit easier for me to get in, and especially because I started during COVID, there was only actually one other master's student that started in my course the same year as me, and there was more places available. I suppose because not many people could get here because of COVID, that made it quite a bit easier for me to get in. So I'm thankful for that. And I think that's sort of the case a bit in general with international students, is that it's a little bit easier to get into the course that you want to in Finland. I'm not sure exactly why, but perhaps more people are trying to move to other countries in Europe to study, and not as many people willing to come this far north. So if you want to study at university in Europe, Finland is definitely a place that you should consider. Of course, the student lifestyle in Finland is also pretty great. My first year of study was quite strongly affected by COVID, and so I wasn't able to meet as many of my classmates and hang out and do stuff. So that sucked. But I noticed that midway through last year, as soon as COVID restrictions lifted a bit and I was able to go to university and meet with my classmates there, yeah, it's really easy to make friends. And so being able to enjoy that uni lifestyle, the student lifestyle, it really helps just quality of life, I think, in general in Finland. There's always plenty of events going on, and the students that I've met have been really friendly and easy to get on with. Also, as an international person myself, it's really easy because of how well everyone speaks English. I'm pretty sure a really high number of the master's programs in Finland are in English. So even all the local Finnish students have a really high level of English, so it's easy to get to know people well. And of course they offer plenty of Finnish courses as well, so I've been learning quite a bit of Finnish alongside my geology studies as well. One of the factors though that I've found with my studies at university that has been a bit frustrating is just like some of the lack of organisation. Part of that is probably because everything's been so COVID affected, so people don't know what's going on. But in general, I did feel like as an international student, I sometimes didn't really know what was going on. So what I mean by that is like sort of, it's not that clear at the start of your degree. Sometimes all of the different courses that you have to do, when they're going to be available. But you'll sort of like last minute get an update about like, oh, this course is starting next week or in 2 weeks. Sign up and enroll now. And so I've sort of found it hard to like plan out my studies. Hopefully if you're coming to study in Finland, that won't be the experience for you, but it's definitely something to consider. And then another thing to consider probably is also just because like if you're learning in English, for the majority of the lecturers, English is not their first language. Everyone knows English really well, and obviously the university lecturers like write papers in English and all this sort of stuff. They all know English, so that's not a problem, but sometimes just naturally it can be easier to like learn and hear a lecture from someone that is extremely confident in English and has been speaking it just naturally all their life. A few times in lectures, I've had to work a little bit harder to understand what the lecturer is talking about, just because they haven't always been able to explain things that well in English. But most of the time, that's not an issue. And even in Australian universities, there's lecturers from overseas that might not have English as their first language anyway. So that's sort of an issue that could be the case anywhere. And I mean, my English probably isn't always that easy to understand for even all you guys, given how strong my accent is and how quick I talk and some of the words I use. So I can't say much, especially now when I'm sick. Sorry about that. It's not COVID though. It's not only university though that is really good education in Finland, but yeah, all throughout primary school and high school, the Finnish system works really well. For the last 2 decades, Finland has been ranked really highly when it comes to the PISA scores. That's the like program for international student assessment. Finland had been top in the rankings for a while. It's slightly dropped down a bit in the last few years, but it's still really high standard on the world scale. Part of the reason for this is that the teachers are really well educated in Finland. My wife has actually just graduated her studies to be a teacher. And in total, she spent 6 years studying at university. So the teachers know what they're teaching. Another interesting thing about school in Finland is that the students get quite a lot of like independence and responsibility, and they actually get quite a few more freedoms. It's pretty funny actually in Finland to be walking around town and you often see like huge groups of students just walking around in public. When they're young, they're obviously always supervised with the teacher, but really often there's just kids anywhere freely hanging out. So kids really learn how to look after themselves and they start maturing pretty early. As well as this, there's sort of a much less like hierarchical nature in the schools in Finland. I was a little bit surprised to hear that kids like call the teachers just by their first name. There's none of this Mr. Charlesworth or anything like this. At my school, I had to refer to all the male teachers as sir and all the female teachers as miss or ma'am. But that's certainly not the case here. That same culture extends itself into the workplace and all that sort of stuff as well. It's a lot easier to just like go and approach your boss, which is like really nice. I've enjoyed that about Finland. You don't have to second guess about like, oh, am I worthy enough to talk to this person? Although hearing my wife's experience at school recently, this less hierarchical structure and less authoritativeness that the teachers have sometimes can be a bit of a downside. I was a little bit surprised to hear the way the students treat the teachers sometimes. I feel like a bit of a boomer saying this, but it seems like back in my day, or when many of you might have gone to school, you couldn't talk back to the teacher so easily. There'd be consequences. But nowadays, not so much. If a kid refuses to do their work and just wants to sit on their phone all lesson, there's sort of not that much the teachers can do to stop them. There's obviously a lot of factors why Finland has been sliding down the ranks over the years, but that's probably one of the contributing factors. If the kids don't want to learn, they don't have to. But there's far more to being a child than just getting good grades at school. And I think kids really learn to have a balance between working hard, but also enjoying the rest of their life. Students get to spend a lot of time out and about doing stuff. And when I think about where I would want to have my kids educated, I think Finland really is a good option. And especially comparing it to Australia. In Australia, there's quite a difference between some of the best schools and some of the worst schools Whereas you know that in Finland, no matter what school your kid goes to, they're going to get a really good education. And again, it's going to be free. We do have free schools in Australia, but if you want your kid to get the best education in Australia, you do have to generally hand out quite a bit of money for their learning. But anyway, overall, I definitely say that if you're considering higher education, Finland is a place that you should definitely have a look at. And even considering a country where you want to have your family grow up and your kids go to school, Finland is basically top of the list for me anyway. But that's all I've got to say about that. Please let me know in the comments below, what's your experience with education like? Have you studied in Finland? Did you go to school in Finland? What did you think about it? But other than that, remember to chuck a like on the video and also subscribe. Hit the notification bell too if you want to. And I'll see you all in the next video.